Hey, Beyond family, it's Dr. Flora. We are in the thick of the holidays, and I think congratulations are in order if you still have your sanity hat on. And if you don't, that's okay because life is tough. I also think it's the perfect time to do a refresher on how to stay in control, feel lighter, and be content when around family or friends who may trigger you. Most women, I know especially in our Desi culture, were not taught about boundaries. There is a cultural expectation that our happiness is dependent only upon our family's happiness, and we are raised to prioritize others over ourselves. We continue to get this messaging even now, some apparent, some slightly subliminal, from multiple sources around us. So listen closely, take notes, and try some of these tips out during these holidays. With practice, patience, and consistency, there is a way to hold your peace and stay close to your loved ones, who you may not like 100% of the time, but you love always. I hope you enjoy these highlights. Good luck. Hi, everyone. You are listening to Beyond, and I'm your host, Dr. Flora. Listen, life is hard. You don't have to do it alone. As a mindset coach, physician, mom, and an infertility warrior, I have mastered techniques to help move you towards contentment and growth. I can't wait to go along with this crazy ass life journey with you while making sure you feel like your best self. This podcast is meant to have you feel unstuck from your rut and less alone. Let's do this. Today, we're going to talk about how to start placing boundaries with family members. Before we start, as a baseline, I want you to know and feel that you are worthy of boundaries. So we got some self-confidence work to do. You have to believe that you deserve space and that your words are honored. Boundaries are important. Boundaries are self-care. They are necessary for your mental well-being. I want you to write this down as your mantra because if you are struggling with boundaries, this is the most effective mantra that you can combat those feelings with. Ready? I cannot control someone else's actions, but I can control my own reaction.
What you're saying is for yourself. It's not for the other person to act the way you
Yep,
want them to act. It's for
absolutely.
you.
You don't have to announce that you're holding a boundary because trust me, nobody wants to hear that. But just by changing your behavior, that's a strong enough announcement. Believe it or not, you are able to set appropriate boundaries without offending people. It's one thing to be hurt, but it's another when someone close to you, someone that you've grown up with, says something that stings. Oftentimes, we don't have our boundaries in place with those who are closest to us due to simple fear because boundaries feel weird and they feel mean. And you may be afraid that boundaries may cause distance. You don't have to cut your triggering family members out. You just need to take control, walls up where they need to be. But what I do know is some words hurt me. They may not have to understand why, but I can't keep resenting them for their shortcomings. I knew if I wanted a relationship built on openness, I had to compartmentalize by setting up healthy boundaries. So this is what I did. I logistically wrote out statements that were triggering to me, and I would write out how I would respond to them and stand my ground. I also wrote out a set of triggering statements that I decided to let go because let's be honest, it's just too much mental energy to fight everything. A huge trigger of mine is when people try to shove food down my throat and they make me feel guilty because I stop eating. It's been an incredibly annoying thing to me since I was a child. And I know what you're thinking, Flora, you're born into the wrong culture. I mean, within the South Asian culture, food is a core love language. Well, it's not my love language. I used to reluctantly overeat when at anyone else's house for dinner, even my own parents. And even though I would politely say no thank you over and over again, ooh, the comments would fly like, oh, you're dieting? You don't need to diet, just come eat more. Or, oh, you didn't like my food? You don't want more because you didn't like it? Or just make me happy. Eat one more bite. Here's a little bit more. So what would I do? I'd eat more. And then I would physically feel unwell. And then that would spiral into negative self talk because I was so unhappy with my expanded belly past my comfort level. Then I'd feel guilty for eating. Then I'd feel guilty for declining. Then I'd feel shameful about my body. And then I would resent any person that would force feed me. And that all led to pretty rude or volatile responses when met with the same situation again. So I would like roll my eyes or let out a big sigh or have a smartass comeback or just snap. Like, oh my God, I said no. Can you just stop? In this scenario, nobody was happy. I mean, no one was happy. I wasn't happy. The recipient of my comment wasn't happy. What was my mistake? I wasn't for sure holding boundaries. I wasn't practicing them. I wasn't pivoting when the no thank you didn't work. I wasn't preparing. My emotions were very misplaced, which leads me to my next point. Boundaries are for you. They are rules for yourself. They are not rules for others. That is a fact. Because once you try to set boundaries for other people, you are trying to control them. Because guess what? Surprising. People don't want to be controlled. So your boundaries are for you, not for other people. So don't set yourself up for failure. Figure out your purpose. Figure out why you want to set your boundary for yourself. The key to taking control over a conversation, AKA your boundary statement, is throwing that person your compassion card. When holding boundaries with loved ones, it is incredibly important to take the time to empathize and
Yes.
to see their point of view instead of through defensiveness or through
Mhm.
anger, right?
Yeah.
And blame, judgment, assumption. All of those things are valid, but it doesn't lead to resolution. It doesn't
Yeah.
lead to problem solving. So,
Yeah.
throwing out your compassion card. So, for example, I had a client who had just had a baby, and
Mhm.
her mom was coming into her household to help. And
Right.
she does not live next to my client. She lived a couple states away. So, big change, right? Having your mom move in for a few months,
Yes.
obviously, out of the best of intentions to help you with your brand new baby. Mom comes in and wants to reorganize the pantry and her
Mhm.
entire kitchen
Yes.
because, quote unquote, she will be doing the cooking and
Mhm.
she needs things, in her way.
Yeah.
My client, who is a type A person like myself and like most of us here, was like, I don't want you to rearrange my entire house. Like, how dare you come in here
Yeah.
into my home and rearrange my stuff and stress me out
Totally.
more? So we decided to throw out the compassion card. Clearly, mom wants to organize, mom wants to feel more comfortable, but we went kind of back to the basics. Why is mom here? Her purpose is to help. Right? Because she loves her daughter. She loves her new
Yep.
granddaughter. She loves her son in law, and she wants to be there as a form of support. But reorganizing the entire house may not be the
Yeah.
way
That
that
may not
someone
be good.
receives support. So instead of being angry and coming off defensiveness and defensively, we tried to throw out the compassion card and use a boundary statement called the sandwich technique. So
Mm.
we sandwich our boundary statement in between two positive statements. So throwing out the compassion card, Mom, I know you're here to help. We're so grateful. Like, thank you so much for uprooting your life. Using
Yes.
whatever phrases and sentences that would
Hmm.
show your gratitude. However, reorganizing my pantry, my kitchen really I think is going to stress me out. But because I want your help, can we try reorganizing the baby's closet, my closet,
Mm.
something else in the house, right? Where you actually truly need help.
Yeah,
And so we practiced using those techniques and statements, and it worked beautifully.
that's
Yes,
wonderful.
people are still triggered, right? We can't
Yeah,
ignore the fact that there will be triggering statements, but by unpacking and just taking an extra, 5-10 minutes to say, okay, I know why this person is saying this, especially if it's a family member.
yeah,
And how can I convey my message, my line, without being harsh, mean, judgmental, assuming. Now, before you throw your phone across the room or stop listening to the podcast, I know this is difficult. When your feelings are hurt, when trauma is brought up, when your emotions are raw, how the hell do you have room or bandwidth for empathy? I mean, come on. I want you to take this into perspective. Most family members or friends, they're not triggering you on purpose. Now, if they are, that's a whole different conversation. We will talk about that later. But most scenarios, they're not triggering you on purpose, right? There's a human being on the other side. There is a gray zone. We don't live in a black and white world. There is a frame of reference that other person grew up with. And we can always try for a teachable moment or five, because sometimes it takes that long. Therefore, it is important to color your boundary statement through empathy. And once you do that, you can formulate a boundary statement that won't be offensive. Here is the golden list of forming your boundary statement, especially with loved ones, especially within the South Asian community. Tone matters, word choice matters, volume matters, facial expressions matter, and perspective matters. And perspective, that's your compassion card. Will you be perfect at this right away? No, that's not the expectation. Can you be prepared? Absolutely. Can you practice? Of course. Will it get easier? Yes. If you know you're going to be in a situation where you're going to be triggered, don't go in blind. Have it ready, practice them. Let go of their reaction, because guess what? We don't have control over other people's actions. Practice them and pivot. Pivot meaning if your boundary statement that you prepared didn't work, you got to change it up. So my no thank you to being force fed wasn't working, but I continued to chug along with the same statement. And that obviously didn't go anywhere because I didn't pivot. After years and years of me going through various homes for meals and not setting boundaries and feeling really bad about myself, it's truly a trigger for me. So instead of rolling my eyes, building resentment, snapping at people who simply mean well, I started throwing out my own compassion card first. So, number one, maybe this person was slaving in the kitchen all day to make this beautiful meal for me. Maybe this person spent a lot of money on ordering this food. Maybe this meal is their favorite meal and they're really excited to share it with me. Maybe food and cooking or feeding is their love language. Maybe in the kitchen or serving is where they feel worthy. Okay, so those are 5 compassion card statements that I made about this person who's trying to shovel more food down my throat. But That changed my response from, God, stop it. I already said no, to, oh my God, Auntie, that meal was so, so good. Thank you so much for taking the time to make this. I'm just really full right now. And if I eat more, I know I'm not going to feel well. But I love them so much. I would love to take some home. So can you pack them up for me and I'll eat them later when I free up some room in my belly? See the difference? A little more fluff, but still pretty straightforward. What do you think? In two extra sentences, in less than 5 seconds, you've thrown in your compassion card and you've changed that entire boundary statement without, I hope, offending. But I also recognize the importance of recharging for all of us, not just me,
Yeah.
even though my husband and Gia are social butterflies. They're night owls, the exact opposite
Love
of
them.
me.
Yes.
And I do too. They're the best balance to me. But I also know that, without our time to just sit, relax, connect, without having to run around to 20 different places where we
Yeah.
won't get that chance,
Yeah.
is going to have more long-term effects where we all kind of crash and burn at different times.
Yeah.
And that takes more time to recover from than having 2 days of
Mhm.
literally nothing, right? I mean, we have little things here and there, but nothing that's running around. We can just truly just enjoy each other.
Yeah.
And that is a boundary that I had to put in, that Sanjay and I both agreed upon, that we have certain burnout seasons after
Yes.
holidays, after all these things, that we do need to block off weekends and stick to it. That's what's so
Yes.
important,
Stick to
is
it. Yes.
sticking to those boundaries. Because,
Yeah.
JOMO is strong. That
Oh, yeah.
need to belong, that need to be included is really strong. And us not going to a few events does not negate that, does not
So
negate the fact
true.
that we still
So
have
true.
friends, that we're still
Yeah.
loved, and we still have people who will rally behind us when we need them.
It took me a lot of time to realize that it's okay to tell people that this is draining for me, so I'm going to remove myself from this.
Now, I'm not going to promise what the response from the other party is going to be, because remember, we can't control them, but your behavior will help you. So let's quickly talk about pushback, which often happens. So sometimes people don't respect your boundary statement, AKA your boundaries in general. This is especially common if you are not a person that holds boundaries. Number one, stand your ground, reiterate. You will sound like a broken record, and that is okay. Politely but firmly repeat your statement. Number two, do not give in. The pressure is real, the guilt is real. But remember, your well being is the most important. Number three, it may be time to reevaluate your relationship. So if someone continuously disrespects your boundaries, it might be worth reconsidering the nature of your relationship. Now, I'm not talking about cutting someone out of your life. That is really never my goal. And I only advise that in extreme situations or dangerous situations, circumstances. But maybe you could change how you are in contact with this person, or the frequency in contact with this person. All of this could change in response to a boundary not being respected. Remember, you must be consistent in enforcing your boundaries. If you waver, guess what? People don't get the picture. Every yes to something you don't want to do is a no to something you need. Boundaries are meant for you. And people may not respond to your boundaries with open arms and happiness, and that's okay. Give them time because they're growing too. Remember, you are worthy. This is why you're setting a boundary, multiple boundaries, because you deserve to be treated with respect and worth. Setting boundaries is not selfish. Setting boundaries is self care. We all have family members who trigger us in various ways. This is hard work, and sometimes it just needs time, patience, grace, practice, and maybe a coach. But just know that you're not alone. I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining and spending your precious time here with me. As someone who prioritizes her energy, I am so grateful that you chose to spend yours here. To help me help you, please take an extra 30 seconds of your time to rate and review the podcast on your listening platform. For more tips and a behind-the-scenes look into my life, follow me on Instagram at Dr. Flora Sinha. That's Dr. Flora Sinha. Finally, connecting with you truly fills my cup. So DM me on Instagram, email me at florasinhamd@gmail.com, repost if you love this episode. I love hearing from you. I am so grateful for you and cannot wait to be back for the next episode. Bye.